Greetings Ventures, it's Lauren Gaming and welcome to my Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon on the Side, Sword Oratoria Volume 7 Light Novel Review. And surprise surprise, unlike Volume 6 where I took about 3 to 4 months right before this book was released to get out my review, it's only been about a week or so since the release of this novel, and here I am with my review, so thank God for that. Thank God I'm getting on top of stuff this time. But for those of you who are unaware of how I structure my reviews, the first part to this review will be a general review of the book itself without any spoilers at all, and then the second half of this review will be a heavy spoiler discussion where I give my thoughts on the actual content of the novel in depth, as well as stuff that will happen in the future that I think might happen in the future. I will give a warning when I do start going into spoiler territory, and I will also put in a timestamp to that spoiler section if you want to go ahead and skip the initial review portion of this if you already read the book. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Volume 7 of Sword Oratoria is of course written by the author Fujino Omori, illustrated by Kiyotaka Haimura, with the original character designs being of course attributed to the main character designer of the DanMachi series and the illustrator of the main series light novels, Suzuhito Yasuda. And as always, the novels are translated and published by YenPress. Volume 7 of Sword Oratoria brings us back to Arario for the search to the alternate entrance to the dungeon. During this search, Loki Familia willingly goes into a trap in an attempt to safeguard Arario from future threat. However, Loki Familia was not prepared for the way this trap would test them as a group, and it ends up possibly being their greatest challenge yet. We get to see the many characters of Loki Familia share the spotlights in this volume, and we get introduced to new enemies and learn a bit more about Arario's past. And these details are very much appreciated. We get to see characters who don't have that much spotlight in the novels, like Raul and Aki, really take a bigger role in this novel as we see throughout the scenes in this book. Because this volume is divided into so many different perspectives of characters, at times it was really hard to just settle down on the character and truly appreciate what they were going through. Unlike in Volume 6 where the narrative was solely focused on the Amazon sisters, and you did get to see a few of the scenes with other characters as well. Whereas here, sometimes the narrative just jumps way too fast between the different characters and it's hard to truly appreciate what these individual groups of characters are going through at that individual time. It was nice seeing some of the more minor characters get some of the spotlight, like Raul and Aki for example, but there were other characters that felt like they were ignored, like the two new villains and also Riveria. One of the villains in particular had a very interesting connection with a Loki Familia member, and the scenes between them were very entertaining. But again, because the novel was split between so many different perspectives, the new antagonist wasn't really given the attention I thought was warranted for this introduction into their character. However, despite those faults, I still enjoyed this novel as a whole. We get to learn more about Arario's past and also get introduced to new antagonists that have a lot of future potential. Here we see Loki Familia struggle in a way that's very unfamiliar to them, but we also see some of the characters in the Familia showcase how they've grown. Rather than tell one conclusive and self-contained story like in Volume 6, this novel feels like more of a setup for the future, so there's not that same sense of closure you got with Volume 6. And again, as always, I very much enjoyed the illustrations provided by Haimura-san in the Sword Oratoria light novels, especially here in Volume 7. I think the new villains have some great art here, and I do enjoy the volume art, the cover art for Eyes here, except I do think Eyes is used a bit much here when it seems like Sword Oratoria is leading up to be more of a story about Loki Familia as a whole, with some focus on Eyes particularly. However, there was a limited edition cover released in Japan for this novel that featured Lafia and Philvis on the front, and I kind of wish we got that one instead, or at least had it included in the book itself, because Philvis kind of needs some love. It would have been cool to see Philvis on one of these covers because she only appears here in Sword Oratoria. We haven't seen her in the main series yet, so that would have been really cool. But I do like this art here provided by Haimura-san for Eyes. All in all, Volume 7 of Sword Oratoria is still a worthwhile read, where you can see many of the members of Loki Familia growing in a time of turmoil. We learn more about the world's past and are introduced to new antagonists who will have bigger roles in the future. The climactic fight in this story doesn't quite live up to expectations that were built up when we were teased about it in the ending of Volume 6, but the events that happen in the novel as a whole do make up for it, as well as the consequences that Loki Familia has to live through after the events of this novel. And again, I really did like the novel. I didn't like it quite as much as Volume 6, because this was mainly more of a setup kind of novel for stuff that's going to happen in the future. But because of what this novel has set up, I am looking very much forward to the future installments in the Sword Oratoria series. And that concludes my general review of Sword Oratoria Volume 7. If you want to go ahead and skip the spoiler discussion section, I will leave a timestamp in the video description if you want to skip to the end of this video, so go ahead and do that if you have not yet read Volume 7. Alright, and like I said in the Volume 6 spoiler discussion, I really wanted to see Ai's perspective on her dance with Belle that happened in the Volume 6 of the main series. We didn't get that at all. The volume starts at the very end of the War Games, and seeing Belle get level 3. So that was a really cool scene to see. Some of the thoughts of Loki Familia on Belle already being level 3, something that took Lafia 2 years to get, which made her a little bit jelly. But man, I really wish we saw that scene with Eyes and Belle dancing. Or at least even some of the training that Tiona and Eyes did with Belle in Volume 6. We didn't get to see that either. So, oh well. We did get to see kind of a nice slice of life portion during the search in Daedalus Street with the Loki Familia female members. They were talking about their crushes, and Philbus was also here too. And I do need to mention Philbus because I find it so adorable to see that Philbus was saying that Dionysus told her to go help in Loki Familia, and then it's later revealed that Dionysus didn't give Philbus any such order, and she's really just there to protect Lafia. And it's just really refreshing to see this friendship between Lafia and Philbus. I really do appreciate it a lot. It helps me bear Lafia's character a bit more, because most of the time when we see Lafia, we really see her looking up to Eyes in an almost obsessive way, and her always being jealous of Belle. So it's nice to see another facet to her character whenever she's in a scene with Philbus here. And Philbus just needs to be honest with herself. And we do get to see that too, saying that Philbus is like trying to just say, I am your protector, Lafia. I'm like, oh, so nice to see the chemistry between these two elves. And even Eyes acknowledges this friendship too, because she smiles when she sees Lafia and Philbus talking together. So it's nice to see Eyes showing some emotion, being happy for her friends. But back to the crush talk that was happening, we get to see poor Raul. As soon as Aki is addressed, hey, what about Raul? She's like, no way. I'm like, oh, giving Raul a cool role in this novel, and at the same time making fun of him. Oh man. And we also see Line say that she likes Bait, which surprises everyone. It's like, what's to like about that guy? I mean, when you really think about it, Bait's a pretty cool dude. But Bates was really cool here in this novel, especially in the fights against Dix. Man, we hate that guy. If you read the main series, we hate freaking Dix. Hate that guy. Oh, but Bates' absolute recklessness, absolute savagery. Dix cursing everyone in the room to go berserk and attack each other. And then I kind of knew this was going to happen. Like, well, one of the ways to solve this is just to knock everyone out, right? And that's exactly what Bait does. But the way he does it was a bit more savage than I thought was necessary. But Bates like, these guys are adventurers. They can handle this this savage beating I'm about to give all of them. How dare you fall to this curse? Let me beat the crap out of you, knock you out, and then take on Dix. And get so close to Dix that even if he does use that curse ability, it won't even matter. Because guess who's in front of Bait if you were to use that curse on you, Dix? You. And I keep getting off topic, trying to talk about those crushes. Of course, Philbus is teased about Dionysus. I talked about Raul and Aki. And the last one I wanted to talk about was when they were asking Eyes. And Omori Sensei just teases us hardcore at that. Like, Eyes, do you like anyone? And rather than just like teasing us, giving us an inkling of something, like she thought of Belle for a second. It just leaves off at that. Like, oh well. And in my review, I do say that some characters take a back seat here. Like, the novel was divided between perspectives of so many different characters, but Reveria in particular doesn't really have too substantial of a role here. Like, she comes in at the end saying, I'm here, ready to rescue you guys, but that was pretty much it. Reveria staying in the back, and then coming in as soon as Lafia needs some help when her and Philbus are escorting everyone back out of Gnosis. So I really wish that Reveria had a bit of a part to play here, especially with how crazy the situation was for Loki Familia, but oh well. And I did talk about the new villains here. The one I liked in particular was, of course, Valletta. We didn't see too much of her. Like, she was introduced, she had that awesome banter between Finn, and that was really entertaining to read. That chemistry between her and Finn, just talking, and Finn mocking her the entire time while she's getting more and more pissed off at how Finn's talking to her. That was such a joy to read. But we really didn't get too much of her, and we don't really know what she's capable of either, because she as soon as she talks to Finn, she like takes that back seat, and then Ravis comes in, and then we know she injures Finn pretty badly and pretty much takes him out of commission. And that's when Raul and Aki had to take the reins and lead their particular group throughout Knossos there. And it was really cool to see Raul and Aki's chemistry there, how they support each other. Aki's the cool and the collected one, and then Raul's that person that does have that potential to lead, but he does not believe in himself. And that's why the dynamic between those two, Aki and Raul, is so enjoyable. But despite the somewhat small role that Valletta had to play here in the novel, because of her, we are introduced to a bit more background on the nightmare on floor 27. We learn that that was actually a big setup by the evils to go ahead and fake some of their deaths so they could go ahead and go undercover, unbeknownst to everyone else, because it was thought that the evils were done as soon as Ryu went on that rampage and destroyed what was thought to be the rest of the evils. But, as we know, that's not the case. And when Aki and Raul recollect this information, they say that happened 5 years ago. So I'm going, holy crap, if Ryu is 21 years old now, she was 16 years old when she went on that rampage. And that's when she was level 4 at that time. And it's been 5 years of Ryu being level 4 and pretty much her status being sealed because the goddess Estrella is somewhere out there because Ryu told her to go ahead and get out of Verario. So Ryu, I definitely think she's ready to be level 5 whenever she can get her status unlocked again. Of course, I gotta mention Ryu in a Sword Oratoria novel she's not really present in because she's my favorite character. But back to Valletta. At the very end of the book, we see that she kills Line, and we know a bunch of other characters get killed as well for a total casualty report of 7 Loki Familia members that are either dead or missing in Knossos. Now, of those 7 characters, of course, like I mentioned earlier, Line is the only one we really got to know. Like, she had her own illustrations, and before in the novel it was established that she had a crush on Bates, and here we see her die. And it didn't have too much of an effect on me, but I know how important she probably is because she is a healer, and hopefully her death is brought up again in Volume 8, because I do know that in the afterword, Omori Sensei says it's going to be about Bates, and I did look ahead through the cover art, and it's about Bates. It's going to be about Bates. So I am interested to see if Line's death has any part there, because she died without Bates knowing, so I'm wondering if someone's going to tell Bates about that or not. Now let's talk about that Ravis and Eyes fight. And we know that Eyes is the underdog in this fight immediately because it was established that Ravis pretty much has the strength equivalent to a level 7, though I think that Otter would probably beat the crap out of her. However, we know that Finn, who's been level 6 for quite some time, struggled a great deal against her. I mean, heck, he walked out of this. He didn't walk out of this. He had to be carried out of Knossos at the end of this novel, so he didn't walk out of this fine at all. So Eyes didn't really have much going for her, but we did learn a little bit more with Ravis here. Not too much, which is why I'm a bit disappointed with this encounter at Ravis, because we didn't learn too much more about her, more about how she calls Eyes Aria, and what Ravis is really going for. It sounds like she's trying to capture Eyes for some reason, not trying to kill her outright. But when Eyes unleashes her wind to try and call out to her companions to gather in that one spot, we see that Ravis is panicking a little bit because she thinks that that Eyes might awaken the other demi-spirits that are throughout Knossos. So that's really interesting to see how there might be more demi-spirits that we might have to worry about. But I do hope these demi-spirits are a bit more substantial than the fights we got here at the end of this novel, because this was supposed to be like the climactic fight of the novel against this demi-spirit that was teased at the end of Volume 6, but it really didn't feel that climactic of a fight, to be honest, because it was really just 3 level 6s, that's the Amazon sisters and Gareth versus that demi-spirit. It would have been, because it just felt like another demi-spirit fight, like we already had in Volume 4. It would have felt a lot better if there were more characters involved, like if Raul, Aki, or Lafia, or Philbus had to deal like the final blow or had a big part in that fight. The fight we got wasn't that disappointing. It was cool to see that Tione has some magic that she can use. It was really cool to see that the magic they used with her rooting whip, and using that to just strangle the human parts of that demi-spirit so it couldn't use magic, and then eventually yanking on that whip so hard it just beheads them. If that ever gets animated, whew, that's gonna be rough to watch. Ooh. I definitely think we could have got more there, but the fight we got was entertaining enough. And like I said before in the review, I think the setup for what happens in this novel will carry on throughout the rest of the books, the main series as well, because we are already introduced to Gnosis through the Xenos arc, and we get to see a lot of the reasoning into why Finn and Eyes are so hostile towards the Xenos when Bell is trying to save them. Because they lost 7 Familia members in Gnosis, the same Gnosis that the Xenos are coming out from. So of course Finn and Eyes are going to have some baggage, and actually Volume 10 of Sword Oratoria is going to involve the Loki Familia perspective on the Xenos arc, so whenever we get to that, I'm going to be really interested to see what happens there. And I already mentioned Valletta, which is one of the antagonists I really enjoyed seeing in this novel, and the other one is of course Thanatos, the remaining god of the evils here. And I do like his reasonings for why he's doing what he's doing, because it's kind of justifiable. He's like, I'm the god of death, and I feel like not enough people are dying, so we need some more people to die, so I'm just going to go ahead and let these evils do their thing. But also when Lafia and Philibus are looking at that Merle in Gnosis, they also see what's like a big gigantic dragon creature, and that's when Thanatos name drops Nidhogg, that big dragon that tormented the land before the monsters of the Three Great Quests were around, Behemoth, Leviathan, and the One-Eyed Black Dragon. So I'm wondering if Nidhogg has anything to do with the future of the series, or if he's just some interesting lore information, because that was a creature that was there before those Three Great Quests started, so I guess Nidhogg's probably already gone, but who knows. Just that tease makes me think otherwise, that Nidhogg will show up again, maybe at the bottom of the dungeon, who knows. And here at the end of the novel, it's cool to see how it links up with Volume 7 of the main series, with the burning down of the Pleasure Quarter because of Freya Familia going against Ishtar Familia for even trying to mess with Bell Crane. How dare you, Ishtar Familia? How dare you, Ishtar? But once again, it's cool to see how Hermes is basically just playing Freya and Ishtar and basically just making Ishtar Familia fall. But that was pretty much all orchestrated by Hermes, him giving information to Ishtar, him giving information to Freya, and eventually playing between the two. Ishtar Familia is no more. And one last scene I want to mention in this book is the scene where Loki Familia is burying their fallen adventurers, and we see Eyes there who's mad at herself. She's disappointed in herself for not being able to cry because of that. And Eyes, if you're mad at yourself for not crying, then your heart's in the right place. If you know that you're supposed to be crying and you're not able to cry. It's okay, Eyes, one step at a time. I know Volume 9 is going to be about your backstory, but we got to get to Volume 8 first, because it's going to be all about debate. I feel like I enjoy the Sword Oratoria novels a lot more when they're focused on a particular member or members, like how Volume 6 was mainly about the Amazon twins, and now Volume 8 is going to be about Bates, and then Volume 9 is going to be about Eyes' backstory, and I know Volume 10 is going to be about the Xenos arc from their perspective, and that's going to be really interesting to see. So after my slight disappointment with Volume 7 of this series, it does set up future installments, and it looks like the next 3 novels are going to be exciting to go through, because they're either solely focusing on a specific character, or Bell's going to be involved, and it's always fun when Bell is involved in the Sword Oratoria series. And one funny tidbit about Bell being involved, if you read the afterword of this novel, you see that Omori Sensei's original plan was to actually have Bell in Gnosis with Eyes during this novel, which is very interesting, because I'm not sure how much a level 3 Bell could do against the planned fight that Omori Sensei had against Ravis, like Eyes and Bell fighting Ravis together. Who is level 7? Eyes had a hard time. Finn had a hard time. What is the level 3 Bell gonna do, Omori Sensei? What's gonna happen? And he said, like, somewhere down the line, I'm not sure if this was a joke or not, but he was considering through a certain, like, I think it said, like, through a numerous amount of life or death situations, Bell and Eyes end up having their first kiss together. Like, whoa, what happened? What led up to this point? How the heck did you get the first kiss from this novel with Bell and Eyes fighting together in Gnosis? But because that kiss was in Omori's mind, we can see where the story between Eyes and Bell is eventually going to head to, which I hope there is some romantic type of involvement between those two, because we're just getting teased left and right with the main series with them dancing in Volume 6, and then again, once more, that village scene in Volume 8. So I can't wait for Belle to catch up to Aiz and become her equal to see how Aiz feels about Belle then. And also, I did mention the limited edition of this book having a cover of Philvis and Lafia, and apparently that came with like a short story of parts of how Omori Sensei's original idea was to have Belle included with Loki Familia in this Gnosis adventure. And I will leave a link in the description if I can find where that story summary was for that short story included with that. But basically, it's Belle running into Aiz's group when they're searching through Daedalus Street, and Belle just coming from the pleasure quarters smelling like musk, and everyone getting a misunderstanding from that. But again, I'll link that in the description if I can find that again. But guys, thank you so much for watching my review and spoiler discussion on Volume 7. I want to know what your thoughts were on this volume, if you had any particular scenes you enjoyed a lot, what you didn't enjoy, any characters you really liked in this particular volume, on what you're looking forward to in the future of the Sword Oratoria series. So go ahead and comment below if you have any thoughts about that. And the next Sword Oratoria volume does not come out until February, and the next main series novel doesn't come out until March. So we got a long ways to wait until the next light novel installments, and I really am thinking about making videos about possibly like comparisons between the anime adaptation and the light novels themselves. Like, I have really strong opinions on the Sword Oratoria anime adaptation, and I kind of want to make videos about that, so you might see something like that in the future. But for now, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel for more content. If you want to follow up on what I'm doing, go ahead and follow me on Twitter and join my Discord for DanMachi discussion and just anime and gaming discussion in general. And as always, continue enjoying your time adventuring in Mario and the dungeon. This is Lauren Gaming, and I'm signing out.